right, thank you for joining us here on this Monday for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. A kind of cold day to start off this week as we get closer to the holiday. And here in the studio right now, I'll show you a bit who we got in. We got meteorologist Craig Muller joining me in studio here this morning. And Craig, listen, when I walked out the door today, it was a reminder that we are officially in winter.
Yesterday morning, the winter solstice, a little bit after 10 o'clock Eastern. And Eugene, it's not kind of cold. It was really cold this morning. Yeah, you could say that.
Really cold.
Kind of day where if a guy can pull off a turtleneck and a blazer, you should go for it. I'm just saying, Eugene, some guys can and some guys can't. I look like I don't know what, but you look good, my friend. All right, so it is officially winter, and you know what? We are just days away from Christmas. So I thought we'd start off with a look at the holiday travel outlook. You can see over my shoulder, skies are mostly sunny. It is beautiful around Hampton Roads. So let's go ahead and take Max 1, and we'll talk about this holiday travel outlook. Again, it's hard to believe all of a sudden we're just 3 days out until Christmas. Of course, that coming up Thursday, Christmas Eve. A lot of folks going to be maybe hitting the roads if you haven't already gotten out to your destination. I would venture to say, Eugene, with the power of Live Impact News, folks maybe from Hampton Roads that have already traveled, maybe checking in to see what's happening around Hampton Roads. So maybe you're in another part of the country. We're so glad you found us here at Live Impact News. Now, across the northern tier of the U.S., that's where we have snow on the ground. You look at that snow depth. We have about 19% of the United States covered with snow at this point. Some of the heaviest snow across the northern tier. So we'll zoom into the northeast. And you know what? Some of these places already with snow on the ground. New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine. Western portions of New York back towards Buffalo and Erie, Pennsylvania. You've got some snow there. You're going to get some more, it looks like, as we've got a couple systems rolling along. Back across the north central U.S., Minnesota, or as I like to say, Minnesota, into Wisconsin and Michigan, the UP, a lot of snow up there. You can see across portions of Montana, western Montana, Idaho, back into the northwest part of Wyoming, the Grand Tetons. Oh, Jackson Hole, such a beautiful, beautiful area. And they are blanketed in heavy snow, over 4 feet on the ground in some areas. More snow through central Idaho. The Uintas in Utah there. That's a east-west running mountain range in the northeast part of Utah. They're covered. We've got snow over the Rockies, back over the Cascades and the Olympic Mountains. We've got those areas covered, as well as the Sierras out in California. So let's talk about travel today as we get things going here. Let's head to the airport. I always like to promote Carousel 13. Why not, right? that's a carousel you definitely want to check in with. Orlando, or as they say, in the musical, Orlando. 79, partly cloudy. That sounds pretty good. 57 in Atlanta. We're going to find temperatures topping out closer to 40 in Philly and 39 in New York. So chillier here in the northern part of the mid-Atlantic up through the northeast. But again, folks in Philly and New York, they'll take this in stride. Not too bad. Looking back down to the south, Dallas, 73, partly cloudy, and around Chicago, Chi-Town, cloudy skies, 43. There are some sprinkles off to the north of Chicago up into southeast Wisconsin. All right, you take a look at our travel delays map, and Eugene, there's a lot going on with this map, okay? You can see we've got, and we'll just take a second here. Basically, if you see green, you are good to go. No travel issues expected. This was early this morning. Where you see the yellow, minor travel delays are possible due to the weather. The red indicates moderate, and then major or really significant travel delays in areas shaded in that kind of pink or magenta color. Now, the graphic that you see, I've got all highlighted. This combines if there's delays or impacts due to rain, snow, ice, fog, or wind. You see it there. I can also break this down individually. So, let's just take a look at rain, and you can see how the map changes a little bit. That stuff out to the west, there are issues with rain, but as you can see, I'll switch it over to snow. You can see the snow there in the higher elevations of Idaho into Montana and Wyoming. So again, folks may be traveling out west. Maybe you've got a ski trip. Maybe you're really fortunate and blessed to be able to take a ski vacation over the holidays with your family. You've got snow there.
Yeah, and Craig, looking at all of the red there also on the West Coast, were we also looking at some of that flooding that's taking place there in California and Washington? Is that what some of that is too?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I like it, Eugene. I like where your mind is going here. I've highlighted the rain, and now you see back in the central California valleys, just off to the northeast of Sacramento, very high likelihood of flooding with the rain there, and we've got more issues as we go. This is just early today. Now, as we go later today, and I'm going to switch this up so you can see through early tomorrow, take a look at the northeast. We've got some snow impacting conditions across Pennsylvania. So again, folks here in Hampton Roads do travel up to Pittsburgh. They do travel up to maybe Scranton or portions of upstate New York. Maybe you've got some family or friends that you're visiting up that way. Know that you may encounter some significant snow early tomorrow. As we look ahead to later midday Tuesday, snow for New York State into Vermont, and then you can see it shifts a little bit farther to the east there into Maine. Again, that's all of them. As we look at the rain, let's go back to rain here. And you'll see early Wednesday some rain, but look at the snow. That's the bigger issue for the Northeast. All right, so now we need to talk about what happens after that. We'll jump forward to Wednesday. And now as we look at the rain, we'll take a look at Southern California. There you go. There is a likelihood of flooding down around LA as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. Northern California, there's fatality, unfortunately, death associated with some of the flooding. It continues to be a huge weather story, and we can talk some more about that because look at this outlook right here. This is the Euro. While we have good weather, and I'll just select the kind of pointing little tool here so you can see this area right here, that is high pressure. So that's why we have the sunshine today and really looking pretty good tomorrow. You're going to see a few showers are going to kind of break across our area early tomorrow. But up and down the eastern seaboard, things are looking really good for us right now. Out on the West Coast, totally different story. More moisture comes in. You see the snow for the Northeast. This is for Tuesday into Wednesday. Look at the system just kind of bombing out here offshore. That is a powerful area of low pressure, but it's away from the Northeast coast, so things really aren't going to be that bad. I think after some breezy and wet conditions, maybe some snowy conditions early Wednesday in the Northeast, things get so much better. We're better here in Hampton Roads. Do you have a question, Eugene?
I do. I'll go back to this, Craig. When we look at some of the things that have taken place there on the West Coast, I'm looking at that flooding we were talking about. Again, California seeing some deadly flooding situations there. Seattle last week too, and some of the issues with the levees that have already been compromised there. When we look at the differences between maybe geography there versus here, I mean, these are storms that were largely caused by a lot of rain. Is there ever a scenario here in Hampton Roads, even with our layout of geography, that's something that can happen here, or are we less susceptible to it because of how things are kind of geographically in our region?
Let me go ahead and give you, I'm going to drop a little meteorology 101. Actually, this is probably more than 101, but I'm going to drop a little knowledge on you and for everybody watching if you are interested. A lot of the rainfall that's occurring out over the western and northwestern U.S., you've heard us talking about the atmospheric river where there's just a ton of moisture streaming in. All right. There's an enhancement of the rainfall, something we call orographic lifting. And basically what's happening is you've got all this moisture and it comes blowing in, it hits the side of the mountain, and what happens? Does the wind go through the mountain? No. It goes up the mountain. As that air that's so moisture-laden goes up the side of the mountain, those temperatures cool, the dew points, everything rings out, and you get all of this heavy rain on the windward side of the mountains. Coming up over the tops of the mountains and down the backside, there is a drying as that air descends down the backside of the mountains. And that's why the western facing, fronts or faces out there get hit with so much, and there's so much concern for flooding in some of those California valleys. You get into that, then you come up the next chain of mountains. There's a lot of flooding that feeds into the rivers and some of the other things. So right now, Eugene, as we zoom in to Northern California, you'll notice there are a few areas that are under flood advisory. If you want to take Max 1 again, we can show you some of those flood advisories that are in place right now in Northern California. We'll zoom in, take a little closer look at that one around Redding, California. And again, there's a pretty good group of folks there, 132,000 under this flood advisory. So, you get up into some of these counties there, Glenn, Shasta, I believe that's Tehama County. I may be mispronouncing it, but a lot of rain up there, 132,500 or so impacted by that flood advisory. Here around Chico, you've got, again, these areas not as densely populated, but still about 67,000 people under this flood advisory. And there's another area just to the south of that that is also under this. So we're talking, areas there north of Sacramento, up in the northern valleys. It is a problem there. Now, do we have that same type of a situation here in Hampton Roads? The answer is no, but we get other types of flooding, okay? They don't worry about tropical systems coming in and dumping tremendous amounts of rain here. Where we do see some of this type of flooding is when we get a lot of moisture that works into the eastern U.S. and it gets pushed up over the Blue Ridge. So you think back to Hurricane Camille, okay? Devastating hurricane back in the late 1960s, okay? Came in, produced catastrophic flooding. Or you think about Helene last year around Asheville in North Carolina. Yeah. There you've got that moisture, again, forced up similar to some of the mountain flooding that they're seeing in portions of California. That's what the setup is. Here in Hampton Roads, we don't have mountains. Mount Trashmore is not going to produce orographic lifting. Right. Maybe a little bit, but not enough to be significant. Yeah. You need those larger mountains. So that's a little different setup, but again, very, very serious, and it's something we're watching. Now, I mentioned flood potential here on this Monday, greatest back there across the Central Valleys and back on the eastern side of the Central Valleys. There's a level 3 or a likelihood of excessive rainfall and flash flooding there, and you see again that heavy rain around Reno, and we mentioned those areas that have had the flood warnings. I do want to take you down to Southern California here, and things are going to be changing up. So I'm doing this on the fly. Here's a look ahead to tomorrow. Now you see, and again, today, I'll show you today, okay, Southern California, not worried about excessive rainfall. Tomorrow, now down through LA, you've got a level 2 threat. So we're talking potentially likely that we see some flooding down there. And then look at on the next day, Wednesday, we have a level 3 threat down around LA. Very concerned with this. And as we zoom in, I can show you a few of the cities there. Santa Barbara, Long Beach, Santa Ana. You can see some of these different areas all under Riverside, obviously. These areas with this very likely, opportunity for additional flash flooding. Then on top of that, Eugene, you had all of the wildfires and the burn scars from some of those wildfires earlier in the year and last year. That takes those surfaces, instead of having vegetation and rich soil to kind of absorb some of it, where there's burn, it's almost like concrete. It just runs right off. So some of those culverts and some of the different drainage areas really fill up quickly. So there's a large concern Christmas Eve that the southern part of California, LA, is going to be dealing with that. And to anybody that may be traveling west for the holidays.
About people who are here who either have family there or they're about to make that track over to the West Coast.
Yeah, you gotta be mindful of this. Take your rain gear. And the other thing is know that there could be some travel delays there as well. I remember visiting. I've got my sister-in-law and brother-in-law live down in San Diego, and we flew out when they had some pretty heavy rains, and they actually had a little bit of a ground stop dealing with it. So you can have some airport delays just because when you get some of these heavier areas, it can create problems. I don't know of any right now, or you can't call them 2 days out, but just know that there is that potential with excessive rainfall down in Southern California.
It's interesting, Craig, when you think about the travel season, everybody's eyeing mostly on a place where they don't live right now, right? And so I've been thinking about all the people there, so we've been reporting sporadically about what's taking place in Seattle, what's happening in California. You just think, man, what a time of the year, too, for them to have to deal with that. Listening to the government officials last week when they were talking about it's not going to take weeks, they're looking at months and beyond to really get back on track to their infrastructure and some of the interstates that have been heavily damaged that they had to kind of close off for a while. And for this to happen now, and also shout out to all of the first responders and all of the state engineers and all those people that are having to really work in overtime right now, again, leading into what is supposed to be a time when you would think a lot of them may have some time off.
For family and everything else. So they're giving up that time. I will say on the weather desk, we ran a story of FEMA actually responding on the ground, folks going out there and helping, some of them literally trudging through floodwaters. And again, they had protective gear on, but they were out there trying to rescue folks. So that is an issue. And again, this is not unheard of. Sometimes they get these prolonged, atmospheric river events, and basically all that is a stream of moisture coming in. I think the media in general, and this is no knock on anybody, but people latch on to some of these things you keep hearing, atmospheric river or polar vortex or whatever, the thing is. These are quick ways to kind of classify what's going on, and basically it's just a lot of moisture. It can be a narrow channel somewhat. Sometimes it's broader. In this case, we've got a pretty good area where it's just like a fire hose. Imagine moisture just coming in to the northwest U.S. So that's been the issue there. As I think about this, again, we've had local people from our emergency task force going out to help out with kind of recovery efforts, because those crews out there get exhausted, those working out there, but also the people here that have dealt with hurricanes and have dealt with these widespread disasters over the course of years can go out there and lend expertise to folks that maybe deal with this stuff once in a blue moon, much less frequent. So,
well, we know it's certainly important because one of the things, I'll cue up a story here in just a bit, but one of the things we know is we're going to have another record-breaking year of travelers. So we know people are going to be out and about, and making sure that they can get to and from those destinations is important. But Craig, before I let you go, I know I want to kind of go a little bit off the rails just a little bit here, just because it's the holiday season, but also we know sports picks up really big right now. We got the college football playoff that's happening, some big games over the weekend. Your colleague, meteorologist Taylor Stephenson, her Oklahoma Sooners had a big loss.
Yeah, that was tough.
Make sure I put that out there because she's so mad at me because I keep bringing it up. But you as a Bears fan, y'all had unbelievable win. If you don't know, Craig is probably one of the number one Bears fans out there. Long suffering, he says.
I love that, and I've repped Bears for a long time, but my buddies have been giving me trouble, like, oh, now you're Bear. I'm like, dude.
Now you're a Bears fan.
Don't even get me going. It's just after years of frustration and looking for the right scenario, Ben Johnson doing a phenomenal job. And the reason we're even talking about this, the deficit that they overcame in the final 2 minutes of the game, they were down 16-6, came back, tied the game in regulation. Unbelievable, play 4th and 4. They got a touchdown to the back of the end zone. They wound up going to tie and not trying to win at Soldier. This is in Chicago. Then in overtime, they wind up beating the Packers, their arch rivals. That was a lot of fun.
And if people think it's cold here,
oh, my gosh. Well, so it was cold. It was interesting. Saturday night when the Bears and the Packers played, it was actually not as cold as it was the week before. It was unreal.
I saw a video of a person the week before at the Bears game. They wanted to test it out in the stands, and they were pouring out a Pepsi or some type of Coke or something.
Right, seeing if it froze before it.
And before it got into their cup, it had already frozen into a slushie. Yeah. I love sports, come from a sports family. My dad played in the NFL in Indianapolis, of all places. Yeah. Absolutely not.
You
would not find me rooting from home
It is amazing. The players talk about this a lot, but, they have some tricks to stay a little bit warmer now. And I don't think they had this during your dad's day,
no.
but they've got these jet warmers essentially on the sidelines. They've got
Technology is really
heated stadium seating for, benches for the players. They've got those coats. Some of the coaches, you see them out in a hoodie and you're thinking, how are they doing that? They're electrically warm. I mean, they've got ways to stay warm. But the fans turn out, and it is so unbelievably cold. So it has been brutal. But I'll tell you, if the Bears keep winning, I don't think the folks in Chicago are going to mind a lot.
Well, I have to root for you guys. My Falcons, I'm an Atlanta Falcons, Georgia boy.
Right.
We haven't made the playoffs for 8 years. And also, speaking of making the playoffs, I have to give a shout-out, since we're here in Hampton Roads, to Mike Tomlin of Newport News. 19 years he's been the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has never had a losing season. I think they win next week. I think they can clinch. They play the Browns.
Mr. Tomlin, coach, is amazing. But it was interesting. They were on the brink of losing with Detroit driving down. They had a lead, but I'm telling you, it was an unbelievable end to the game
ending.
last night. This was Detroit against the Steelers. They were playing in Detroit, and they flashed up the record. Tomlin, I want to say he was like 103 and like 0-1 or something. It was unbelievable. He had never lost when leading that late in the game. And I was just like, wait, what? Whatever the statistic was, it was eye-opening. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. And I thought maybe that was going to change. And fortunately for the Bears and all the Steelers fans, the Steelers won, and that got, not only does it keep the Steelers in good shape, that got the Bears into the playoffs. So without that, the Bears would still be fighting for a playoff spot. But we're in. I mean, just a crazy, crazy weekend. And the funniest mind thing of all, and we will get back into the rest of our live Impact news, but it's so much fun talking sports. Chicago collectively, and I was doing it myself. I said, this feels so weird. We were actually pulling for Aaron Rodgers. Which, I mean, as a longtime Packer quarterback, the Bears have done nothing but hate on Aaron Rodgers. We're like, oh boy, come on, Aaron.
The man who once said he owned the Chicago
he
Bears.
said, I own Chicago. We're like, make him the mayor. This is great. You got the Bears into the playoffs by beating
Nothing
the Lions.
like time and a change of scenery, what it won't do. But no, seriously, I wanted to shout him out because talking about local Newport news and his background with William and Mary, and then for him to do that, we'll see what happens if they're able to clinch where they are able to clinch in their division. But shout out to you guys.
One of the great coaches, though. I mean, Mike is unbelievable. Really great.
First ballot Hall of Famer for sure.
Want to quickly, before we come off beat, just because we never did it, let's go to the 7-day forecast just for folks here in Hampton Roads.
Which is really good because on the back end of you talking about that, actually, can I play this quick story about AAA when it comes to travel real quick?
Sure.
We're going to play this because then on the back end, I want you to talk about the 7-day, what people can expect for their travel. Just about a few minutes here. We're going to play this story. Again, AAA expecting another record year when it comes to holiday travel this year. So let's go ahead. I do believe this is Brittany Miller reporting.
miles to celebrate Christmas and the New Year. The most popular way to do that will be out on the roads.
A more cost-effective way, especially for families to travel.
A part of that low cost is gas prices. According to AAA, the average price for a gallon of gas in Hampton Roads is $2.77, 12 cents lower than the national average and 4 cents lower than a year ago.
A little bit less painful on people's wallets than it has been than it was this time last year.
Ryan Adcock, a public relations specialist for AAA, says now many Americans are willing to drive a further distance than in years before, like Oscar Durantes, who's making a 9-hour drive from Hampton Roads to Atlanta for the first time.
I think it's more affordable. I just got a new vehicle too, so why not?
Durantes plans to leave closer to Christmas Day, which AAA says is the best decision if you won't have enough room in your suitcase to pack your patience.
Today and tomorrow being extra congested out there on the roads for people getting to their holiday destinations. And then we're as well forecasting that December the 26th, the day after Christmas, is going to be quite a busy day out there on the roads.
After COVID-19, Adcock says the record number of road trippers they're predicting shows people are prioritizing traveling.
We're really seeing people really wanting to spend time with their friends and spend time with their families, especially during the holiday season.
All right, Craig, we were looking at that. So we're looking at the days that could be really busy. Tomorrow could be busy. The day after Christmas could also be busy. What's it looking like in terms of our forecast?
So across our region, we're actually in pretty good shape. We were chilly this morning. Temperatures started off in the teens and low 20s inland. Now, afternoon highs near 44. It'll be a little warmer for some of our inland areas. Will be more like mid to upper 40s. In fact, down around Edenton, they might hit 50. But a cool day today across the region. Travel is great, though. Lots of sunshine. Tomorrow, if you're trying to get out in the morning, I think we will see some isolated to scattered rain showers. You see that low near 34. It should be a little bit milder by the time the rain arrives. So that low occurs sometime pre-sunrise. As clouds roll in, we're going to see the wind shifting to the south. And I think by the time the showers start, we should actually be in the upper 30s. So a chilly rain tomorrow morning, at least isolated to scattered showers, some clearing later in the day, and the afternoon high near 55. So it does get better. If you do not like to travel in the rain and you're concerned about that, make sure you get up and check with us on Daybreak tomorrow morning. I'll be watching that, letting you know that it is all just rain, or if there's any areas where there's any mixing farther north. But it does look like a rain event with showers tomorrow morning. If you want to put off your travel till later in the day, you're going to see clearing Tuesday, looking really good through the afternoon, mid-50s. On Christmas Eve, mostly sunny. I think folks will be happy with that. Temperatures generally mid-50s and upper 50s on Christmas Day. I will say there's about a 20% chance for a shower or two on Friday. And honestly, Eugene, this is the one where I'm kind of going, okay, we'll see. Some of the models going colder on Friday, others going warmer. Right now, our 13 News Now official forecast from our weather team, we're going warmer, and I didn't see anything definitive to change that. So I'm leaving it lower to mid-60s on Friday. But I will say at least one of the models that we occasionally look at, that can be pretty reliable, actually cools us down a little bit on Friday, but we'll see. For now, I don't want to change it because other guidance is pointing towards warmer. So it looks like a warming trend this week, back into the mid to upper 50s Saturday and Sunday. All in all, pretty good travel here, but obviously other parts of the country may be seeing some other things, as I was just showing you with that kind of wide view with the European model.
All right, Craig, man. Appreciate you stopping on through,
You
man,
bet.
and breaking everything down and spending some extra time with me this morning. And shout out to your Bears. I guess I'll be a fan for you guys for the rest of the year.
You spent some time in Illinois.
I know.
I mean,
but
how
it
could
gave
you
me
not?
such a bad time in Illinois for being a Falcons fan that I swore to myself I would be revengeful for the rest of my time. And we ain't made the playoff. I don't think we made the playoffs since I moved.
The fact that
there.
you hang in year after year, I got respect for Eugene and his love for the Dirty Birds.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
you'd
At least you
be
say
all right.
long suffering. At least the Bulls could win, all that kind of stuff. I
Little
haven't
bit.
won virtually anything. My Braves, shout out. Thank you for giving me some joy. But outside of that,
A
not
little
too
bit,
much.
yeah. The Braves have had their runs for
Not
sure.
too much. All right, Craig, man.
Hang in there, buddy.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much, man. All right, well, you heard Craig talk about your 7-day there, and there are some other things that we want you to know about as you're heading out for the holiday season. Again, we're also in the winter season now officially. We know that means that flu season is also here. And across the country, doctors are warning about a surging rise in cases of the flu, with this latest mutation being dubbed the super flu by some. The CDC says just of last week we have two. We've had multiple deaths. Two of those were children, one being from North Carolina. Nationwide right now, the number looks to be 49,000 flu hospitalizations. That's still lower than peak season, but there's an uptick happening right now too. So we want to make sure that you know all of the things that you need to know in terms of staying safe and protected here for flu season. So I'll go ahead and play an interview with one of our doctors from CHKD, Laura Satz, who had some great tips and information for those who are going out and just to make sure that you're good this holiday season.
We referenced flu season. When does it officially start and how long does it go?
now. It changes as flu seasons are cyclical. Sometimes we have a very mild season and then the next year we get hit hard. That's what we're predicting for this year based on what is happening in Australia and the Southern Hemisphere. Remember, it's a winter thing. So as the weather gets cooler, and people spend more times indoors and there's more transmission from person to person for those respiratory viruses like influenza. We know that in Australia, they had a lot of flu. So our prediction is that we usually mimic what happens. It is starting now, but we haven't been hit really hard and heavy yet. But we pay attention.
We talk about the best practices all the time on air to kind of protect yourself. And a part of that is the vaccine, the flu vaccine. When's the best time to get it?
Now is perfect. We actually already finished our influenza campaign here at the hospital. We have everyone vaccinated by October. The other health systems do similar things to make sure that everyone is healthy. Remember that vaccine does not prevent you from getting the flu. It prevents you from getting the serious complications of the flu that would give you higher risks, such as getting hospitalized or having secondary infections like pneumonia. Vaccination does not prevent infection, but prevents the serious complications of those infections. That's how vaccines work. And that is actually hold true for both flu and COVID and all of our other vaccine programs.
And, people always want to know how effective this year's flu vaccine is. Do we have an answer for that?
It's a little early to tell because we really haven't hit our flu season. We generally estimate it's about anywhere from 50 to 70% effective, which when people hear that, they're horrified. Like, why wouldn't it be more effective? Especially when we have vaccines like measles that are 95% effective. And part of that is we actually change the flu shot every year. Well, not we personally, we as a global community. And it's based on what circulated the year before and how well that guess and match happen. The good thing about it is a little bit of protection still helps you from not getting those serious complications of influenza. And you may only have a mild cold and maybe not even a fever compared if you're unvaccinated, where you're at much greater risk to get the fevers, the body aches, and just generally feeling bad. People who've actually had influenza, remember it because you don't feel good. It is not the sniffles.
And people often say, too, you're talking about some of the symptoms of the flu where they'll get a flu vaccine or a vaccination and they'll feel some type of side effects from it. Are there any side effects that people should maybe expect if they are to get the vaccine?
Yeah, sometimes you can get a sore spot on your shoulder of where you get it. And sometimes you can feel not quite yourself right after the vaccine. That's your immune system working. That means your body is actually responding to that vaccine and you're having some immune response to the protection. Some people will get a swollen lymph node in that arm where you get that shot. It was much more common with our COVID vaccines than with influenza, but that can happen as well. And those only last a day or so and go away.
About if me or my child has asthma, allergies, any other kind of medical complications, is the vaccine safe for them? And then also, what are some things that you can possibly do to prevent even further getting sick?
Yeah, well, yes, the vaccine is actually very safe for them. And in fact, it is very highly recommended for them. Anybody who has an underlying illness or condition that would put them at greater risk to have bad flu needs it. So asthma, anybody who has other respiratory, like adults who have COPD, adults with heart disease, our patients whose immune systems may be impacted by cancer. The flu vaccines we have are not live viruses, generally, the ones that you get the shot for. The one that goes up your nose is different. That is live, and certain people shouldn't get that one. But it is there to make sure that you get a little bit of protection. And so we do strongly suggest all those patients get the flu shot. There are no more risk to get flu shot side effects with those. So if you have asthma, you don't have any increased risk to getting a sore arm or some just generally not feeling well than you would if you didn't have asthma. But if you have asthma and you get the flu, you're much more at high risk for going into the hospital. We know that last year our flu season had a great increase in childhood deaths across the United States. And so the majority of those children were not immunized. And so it's, one would hope that if they had been, when you just look at those numbers overall, that might have prevented some pediatric deaths. And so that's why, especially in children with underlying issues, it's important to get them vaccinated.
At what point, what symptoms should kind of tell a parent, hey, my child needs to stay home from school?
Fever. No, and in fact, there are rules for that for the school systems. As anyone who has a parent who knows, when their child gets a fever, you get that phone call and you can't come back. And so fever is a big one. When they don't overall feel well, and parents know their children, they know what their children's normal behavior is. You don't want to send a child to school who's coughing so much that they can't control it, and that's distracting for them in their learning environment, and it's distracting for the other children as well. So those are the big ones. Vomiting. Now, influenza in kids can make people vomit. You generally don't get loose stools or diarrhea with it. People talk about the summer flu. It's not the same thing. But adults generally don't get the same side effects as that, or the same symptoms. They don't really get the vomiting part, but kids can. You shouldn't send a kid to school if they're throwing up.
Are all of those symptoms the same? If I were to ask you, when should they go to a doctor?
A little bit. So generally, if someone's still sick 2 or 3 days later, or they're not acting correctly, they're not thinking, like you talk to them and you just know that there's something not quite right, that is the first thing to do is call your doctor, call your pediatrician's office, because they may know that we are seeing an increase in flu, or they could have one of the other respiratory viruses as well and give you some good guidance. As always, if any child has trouble breathing, is not recognizing their parents, are not acting like they know what's going on, those you go to the emergency room. It's never wrong if you're worried to call the doctor or go find and seek medical care, because we don't want those children to be sick. The other thing to look for is if a child has the flu, is sick for a few days, gets better, and then gets sick again, especially with fever, those are the times you need to go to the doctors, because that's a time where we worry about children getting a secondary bacterial pneumonia, either with a staph or strep bacteria, that's actually going to need to be treated differently, and usually with antibiotics. In the beginning, you remember, you don't need antibiotic for the flu because it's a virus. It doesn't work. But when you have the flu, it actually changes the way your body reacts to different bacteria and can get you greater at risk for those infections, which is one of the reasons why people die after the flu. It's the flu combined often with another bacteria.
So we're in the house, people are sick, or maybe we know people who are sick. How can we reduce the spread of, something like the flu inside our house if we already know it's infiltrated into the household?
Yes. So we already know a lot of things. I mean, the pandemic was not fun for any of us, but it gave us some really good skills. People then realized hand washing. Hand washing is amazing. Washing your hands after you blow your nose, after you cough, coughing into your elbow instead of into your hand. Wearing a mask. Masks help prevent infections. The period of time where we were all isolating for COVID, and we were all 6 feet apart and not socializing, we had virtually no influenza the next year, because all of those viruses are transmitted the same way, through respiratory coughing and droplets. They land on something, making sure you clean surfaces, with something. You don't need something fancy. Most of your household cleaners are good enough. And really you need, cleaning off the toys that the kid has in their mouth. And that helps a whole lot. It's, but hand washing is a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much. Is there anything that we haven't hit on when it comes to this topic that you are like, I want to make sure that our viewers and fellow people in the community hear when it comes to the flu or respiratory illness over the next few months?
So one of the big things is vaccines. Vaccines are safe. They're effective. But remembering that, again, immunization does not prevent that infection. It prevents the serious complications of that infection. And I think that is sometimes it gets lost a little bit. Staying away from someone who's sick. So it's hard at the holidays because we want to go to your, everyone's house and see. But if you are sick or your child is sick, maybe stay home and celebrate the next day or after everyone gets better. No one wants to be that first patient who exposes grandma and has worse outcomes because of that. And so wash your hands, wear your mask, and get your flu shot.
So you hear it there from Dr. Laura Sass on what we can do to better protect ourselves again as we're seeing a surge in cases across the country. Still not at the highest as we've seen in peak seasons, but doctors are issuing some warnings for people just to be alert and be aware of ways in which you can protect yourself. Many of those you just heard there from Dr. Sass. Now, on the back end of that, we're talking about record-breaking travel for people for the holiday season. We're looking, obviously, and what this winter season could mean when it comes to illness, but we also know there are people who are going to be doing their holiday shopping as well. Before we get into that, one note that we're hearing from the Sheriff of Virginia Beach, they are definitely making sure that people are protected and aware that they usually see an uptick in people who maybe shoplift or give some kind of theft around the holiday season. They're reminding people when you go out, you want to be alert. If you're in your parking garage, whatever that may be, put away those distractions, put away your camera, walking in and out of stores. And also, if you can go to these establishments, these stores, in groups of at least two, that's what Sheriff Rocky Holcomb is recommending for people, saying that those who are doing these crimes are always looking for easy targets, okay? But with that, we're talking about it because we're also looking at potential for records being broken with how much people spend this holiday as well. We got another interview looking at some holiday shopping and some tips and things we can expect. To go ahead and play that right now.
Like you said, today is Cyber Monday. So what should people expect with international shipping this year? How is it different?
Well, Samantha, this year, Cyber Monday is a little bit different because our government introduced new tariffs and some new regulatory changes like the removal of de minimis earlier this year. So that's added a little bit of complexity and a little bit of cost in the customs clearance process. That means people that are shipping internationally need to be a little bit more aware of those costs coming in, maybe budget a little bit more time to get things cleared and delivered. So just a little bit of a change compared to earlier years.
And I know we've experienced kind of, a turbulent year with tariffs and things like that. Has that impacted your shipping at all and how you guys do business?
Yes, I think we've seen volumes decline this year about 30% with the changes in tariffs and de minimis. We are still expecting a modest peak season with volumes being up 33% compared to our normal Q3 run rate. That's a little bit softer than we normally see. Normally we see 40 to 50%, but it's still a moderate peak. And what was probably exciting for me was recently we surveyed over 400 small and mid-sized businesses, and 40% of them responded that they felt this year's orders were going to be higher than last year, and 47% said they'd be at least the same. So that's a good level of optimism, and that's something we like to see in here.
And, just coming off the heels of Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, did you kind of already see that boost? Like, are you already shipping more things than you were maybe last week?
Yeah, we're already seeing that volume come in. If you see behind me, the people are busy loading up to get out on the road this morning, and we were prepared for that. And one of the things that we did this year was make sure, particularly in the area of customs, that we had added personnel. More than 600 people added, 300 of them in customs and brokerage operations, 200 in finance and duty billing, and over 100 in customer service that would make sure that we could clear packages timely, we could get them billed accurately with the appropriate duties and taxes. And we've got the customer service team on hand to answer any questions because it is more complex. And we want to make sure all of those answers are in place so that packages keep moving to be delivered before the holidays.
And if someone at home is right now thinking about shipping internationally, what should they know? And is there any like dates that they should be on the lookout for?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Our drop dead date for deliveries into the US before Christmas is December 18th. So make sure you order before then. A couple of other tips that are important this year with this new environment. Number one, if you're ordering online, ask for a fully landed cost, an estimate of the duty, tariffs, and taxes that you will owe so that you're not surprised when the goods come in and we contact you to get those and collect those tariffs for the government. And finally, very important when you're placing those orders that you include a valid cell phone number and an email address. That's the best way for us to be able to reach you if there's a delay or there's information we need or a payment to collect. If it's accurate, we can get to you early, and that makes sure the process moves smoothly. What I can tell you is I got lots of people on the road ready to do those deliveries. I want to make sure I get them to you before the holidays.
Any other tips or things that people should know if they're, expecting a package?
If you're expecting a package, watch your text messaging and your email. You might get a notification if we need to confirm your delivery address, maybe to collect payment for those duties and taxes. That's how we're going to reach out to you first. And if you follow those links, you can help us help you get your package on time.
And just because you mentioned links and text messages, we see a lot of scams like that this holiday season. How specifically, what type of link would you guys send? What website should they look out for?
It will have a link to a www.dhl.com website. So that's our main page. You can always visit us there if you want to look for something, you're trying to track that package or ship a package. But when the link comes through, it will have some tie to that main address.
Great. That's all from me, Greg, unless you have anything else that you want to wrap up with or mention that people should know.
No, I would just say ship early, make sure it's properly packaged, have all your information right, and we look forward to bringing you those great holiday gifts. So thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I'll say happy holidays to you and your viewers.
All right, you see there that there were some tips there at interview coming a few weeks ago, actually, with the Cyber Monday you may have heard. But one of the things that they're making sure is there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be delivering those gifts via mail and shipping and purchase them online. So some good tips for you to have there for you right away. Okay, I want to go ahead and talk about something that is just coming in to our newsroom right now. And this is breaking news, actually, that is coming out from the Trump administration here. The Trump administration has decided to pause off-wind energy projects in several portions of the country, including right here in Hampton Roads. The one in which has been paused here is the Coastal Virginia offshore wind pilot project. That one kicking off with its first installations in 2020. Here's what we're getting right now, the latest information coming in. The Trump administration is pausing leases for 5 large-scale offshore wind projects under construction all along the East Coast. They are citing unspecified national security risk identified by the Pentagon. Now, this pause is effective immediately, and they say it will give the Interior Department, which oversees offshore wind, time to work with the Defense Department and other agencies to assess the possible ways to mitigate any security risks that they say are posed by the projects. If you know anything about the Coastal Virginia offshore project, this is something that is worked on. Dominion Energy designing it. Virginia Department of Energy has worked with this as well. It had been lauded by officials here in Virginia as a major project to support the state. But here we're seeing from the Trump administration that these leases are paused. And it also is paused with a project under construction in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, and 2 projects in New York as well to go along with the Coastal Virginia offshore wind project. Here's the thing, though. This comes just 2 weeks after a federal judge actually struck down President Trump's executive order that blocked wind energy projects, saying that the effort to halt all leasing of wind farms on federal lands and waters, this according to the judge, was, quote, arbitrary and capricious. and violates U.S. law. Now, that judge was ruling in favor of 17 state attorneys generals and also in Washington, D.C. So this is going to be a story that we're going to be on today for sure, as this is going to greatly impact us here in Hampton Roads and Virginia. And I know that our team, looking at our email so far, has already reached out to Dominion Energy. I'm going to search here online in just a bit to see if we got any more, if we have any other responses so far. This news just coming in the last 25 minutes or so as we're trying to sort through it in the moment. But our team already looking into the matter, has reached out to a few people waiting for some response. But again, the big news out of that is that the Trump administration says it has paused construction on multiple offwind energy projects, including here in Hampton Roads. The Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project is currently paused, according to the Trump administration. And this comes on the heels of Governor Glenn Youngkin just days ago citing his achievements under his administration here in Virginia during his 4 years. And he spoke before the General Assembly and was detailing how he has been able to achieve what he believes has been the success of his time in office. I'm going to play some of that in the moment so we can listen to the governor in his own words on what he believes he has been able to do and what his legacy will be once he is out of office here soon in the Commonwealth.
Governor, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's nice to know everyone is up and rolling this morning. Chair Lucas and Chair Torian, Chair Watts, members and staff of the Joint Money Committees, thank you for this invitation to join you all here again. Mr. Speaker, thank you for being here. And I'd like to welcome the Governor-elect Spanberger. It seems only yesterday that I was sitting in that chair, and I do wish you and your family a blessed holiday season and a fabulous administration. Thank you. Once again, we come together to discuss Virginia's financial strength and how to best be good stewards of the enormous resources. A biennium budget with $72 billion of general fund resources and $212 billion of total resources. How best to keep Virginia growing, how best to invest in key priorities and capital investments across the Commonwealth. And as I look around this room, I am filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. First, gratitude for Virginia's financial strength that has enabled and will continue to enable record funding into critical areas while providing substantial tax relief. Second, because I see so many women and men who have played such a pivotal role in the incredible strides Virginia has made over these past 4 years. First, our General Assembly partners, thank you, thank you, thank you. And especially the dedicated members of my administration. Thanks to all of you. And finally, for my amazing wife, First Lady Suzanne Youngkin. Every single day, Suzanne makes our Commonwealth a better and a brighter place. Thank you for your tremendous service. When we first came together in January 2022, I talked about the need for us to lower the cost of living for hardworking Virginians, especially through tax relief. Open Virginia for business to create jobs and grow opportunity. Liberate Virginia from overregulation and reduce the cost of bureaucracy. Deliver excellence in education with student-centered schools that prepare students for life, with parents at the head of the table, and tremendous support for our teachers. To keep our communities safe by supporting law enforcement and holding criminals accountable. Transforming our behavioral health system that was overwhelmed by Virginians in need. Preserving the vast natural resources that our Lord has blessed Virginia with. And transforming government to serve the people of the Commonwealth. My friends, we have done all of that and so much more. Together, we have worked for and seen Virginia achieve such remarkable strides. We all should be incredibly humbled when it was recently called the Great Virginia Renaissance. A renaissance that we led together and witnessed together. It's a story of transformation, a story of promises made and promises kept, a story of competing and winning, a story of Virginia leading. A Virginia that is stronger today than she has ever been. Over the past 4 years, we've seen record business investment. Today, $156 billion. Record job growth. And in 2023, for the first time in a decade, more people moved to Virginia from the other 49 states than moved away. And all of this is added up to record revenue growth. Record revenues that have allowed us to provide record amounts of tax relief for Virginians, $9 billion. Record revenues that underpin our ability to make record investments in our most important shared priorities, in education, in child care, in child services, in law enforcement, in behavioral health and health care, in business-ready sites and workforce, and in preserving the Chesapeake Bay. Record revenues, record tax relief, record investments, all driven by a Virginia economy that is strong, dynamic, and importantly, diversifying. Virginia now is leading in sectors like advanced manufacturing. We are seeing that made in America truly means made in Virginia. The pace has been fast and the progress has been significant, and therefore I'm proud to stand before you today to present a budget that incorporates all the aspects of what we have collectively done to make Virginia the very best place to live and work and raise a family. A budget that benefits from this renaissance and one that I firmly believe will keep it going. My introduced budget has 7 key elements. First, it is underpinned by a prudent revenue forecast that reflects a 3.5% compounded annual growth, or roughly 3% after tax policy adjustments. That's less than half the 8% compounded growth realized during my administration. This leaves meaningful upside for the next administration. Second, just like every budget I've introduced, this introduced budget incorporates tax relief for both individuals and businesses, totaling $730 million. It's their money, not government's. And to be clear, there is no need for any new taxes, and there is no need for tax increases. Third, my introduced budget meets the significant funding needs across our shared priorities. Areas such as Medicaid, SNAP, K-12 education, child care, child welfare services, higher ed, public safety, behavioral health, and agricultural best management practices. Fourth, this budget continues to fund key ingredients to keep our job growth and waves of economic development wins going, with 2 critical elements being business-ready site investments and workforce development. Fifth, this budget includes $1 billion in compensation actions for teachers, support positions, sheriffs and their deputies, state police, and other state employees. This amount includes a 2% one-time bonus in 2026 and 2% raises in 27 and 28 for teachers and state employees. 6, this budget, with a prudent use of bonding and cash, supports nearly $2 billion of critical capital projects and maintenance reserves. And finally, 7th, this budget is structurally balanced coming out of the biennium and for the total of the 6-year forecast period. Our budget begins with our forecast, and our forecast is a prudent one. As I just described, Virginia's revenues have grown at an average of 8% a year during my term. That's 60% higher than the Commonwealth had seen for the last decade. Revenue continues to grow at 5.2% during the first 5 months of fiscal year 2026. This increased growth has been a direct result of the plan we all put in place back in January 2022 to win business investment, to grow good jobs, and to bring more people to Virginia. And we did all of it at record levels. As I said, $156 billion in investment commitments to build and expand. That's more than the 24 previous years combined. With more than 270,000 more people working today, more than 200,000 open and available jobs, and 85,000 more jobs coming, with 40,000 more construction jobs on top of that, Virginia has jobs more than ever. This success was built on streamlining 35% of our regulations, saving Virginians $1.4 billion a year, transforming workforce development, leading the nation in apprenticeship sponsors, building the nation's top-ranked customized workforce development program, investing in business-ready sites, adopting an all-of-the-above energy plan, driving forward great infrastructure at our port, our highways, rail and bridges, and broadband. And most importantly, tremendous work by our economic development professionals and leadership at the local and state level. This high rate of revenue growth should continue as long as Virginia stays with the demonstrated winning formula. Indeed, despite the predictions for financial calamity that was predicted by many this year, and I have to say, many in this room, financial calamity has not happened, and Virginia, again, is running a significant surplus.
We're going to come back to that in just a moment, but right now I got to get off because I am seeing on our board there is a press conference taking place in Rochester, New York, this days after 3 police officers were shot there without warning at close range, according to police officers there. So I'm going to turn it over to this press conference where we are hearing from what it appears to be the police chief there in that area.
Davis was shot at least once in the upper body. Officers did perform medical care on scene. However, he was deceased at the scene. He was found to be in illegal possession of a .40 caliber Glock handgun that had been fired to lockback position, which means it had been fired until it was empty. There was no more ammunition in the gun. Ballistic evidence at the scene preliminarily indicates that Davis fired at least 4 times on Charlie Avenue, striking 2 officers and the civilian victim. Evidence also indicates that he fired at least 3 times on Thurston Road, striking the 3rd officer and then a tree that the 4th officer had sought cover behind. The civilian victim legally possessed a .30 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun. Ballistic evidence at the scene preliminarily indicates he fired at least 6 times on Charlie Avenue. It is again important to remember that this is all preliminary information subject to change. We had 2 crime scenes. It was a very big area. Obviously, we worked the scene that night and into the day on Saturday, trying to collect everything. The investigation is ongoing. We will continue to release more information as the investigation continues. We will be releasing the body-worn camera footage. I don't have a time frame for that yet, but we will release it as we normally do. I would like to take this opportunity again to thank all of the partner agencies. I think it's very remarkable and speaks to the relationships that we have, that we're fortunate to have in this county. As I was rolling up to the crime scene, I was passing cars from Greece, from Brighton, from Webster, from Gates, from the sheriffs, from the state police, on scene helping us out that night. I think what is also remarkable and speaks to the professionalism of this department is that by 3 a.m. that night, after I'd left the hospital and came back here and was working with the command staff, they had the radio on. And you could already hear that by 5 a.m., all of our partner agencies had left, and the Rochester Police Department was once again conducting business as usual, taking calls, taking care of the citizens of Rochester. It's 5 hours after 3 officers had been shot. We were back in the saddle, we were at it, and our partner agencies had gone home. And if that's not professionalism, I don't know what is. We have had some questions about what a domestic incident actually entails, and I mean, there's criteria obviously we use, but in general, family trouble calls, domestic calls that we respond to, we handle about 6,000 a year. So that's 16 to 17, between 15 and 20 every day. About 60% of those are criminal related. So obviously, a lot of our work has to do with domestic disputes. Domestic disputes, family troubles, along with traffic stops are two of the most dangerous things that we do. Not only in this instance is there was a firearm involved, but I mean, think about it. Officers are going into people's homes to try and mediate these things, make an arrest if necessary. Those officers are on someone else's home turf. The folks that live there, they know the environment. They know where possible weapons are. They know what they're going to do or not do. And it's something that, again, when you're doing this job, you can't take anything for granted. You have to be on your toes 100% of the time. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Wader. He's the president of Locust Club. He's going to make a few comments.
Thank you, Chief. I'll keep it short and sweet. These are very challenging times. We have, as the proud president of the Rochester Police Locust Club, we represent about 600 men and women on a daily basis. And that's our responsibility, to make sure that they have the best representation, but also that we take care of them. And when I say challenging times, nobody wants to get that phone call anytime saying that you have an officer injured, officer shot, or worse, 3 officers shot. Our responsibility, and I can't thank people enough for the outpouring of support that we've received for these officers and their families. It's been overwhelming, and we thank you greatly for all the outpouring of support. It's been a difficult weekend. Not only any time of the year, no one ever wants to hear this or have an incident like this happen, but it's Christmas time. And these officers have families, they have children, they have parents and spouses, and it makes it more difficult, especially this time of year. I would like to thank not only the members of the Rochester Police Department, their co-workers, the Major Crimes Unit, everybody that's been so supportive in doing their job to try to help these officers in this very difficult time. But the outpouring of support that we've received from our other agencies, the fire department, everybody has reached out to us saying, what can we do to help? I want to pass along this message as well, too. It's been difficult. It's been tough to see them at the hospital, but I want to thank the staff at Strong Hospital. Having 100 cops come through the door on a Friday night is difficult as it is, and trying to deal with cops is sometimes difficult as well. But they were just so supportive, so understanding. They opened up their doors for us. They gave us every accommodation we can imagine, and the care that our members have received has been very, very incredibly helpful, and I can't thank them enough for everything they've done. What I would also pass along, that if anyone wants to send a card or anything like that, we can get the contact information as to where to mail that to. I know that the officers and their families would greatly appreciate that. So, having said that, I would just like to thank everyone for all their support, and please say a prayer to make sure that not only physically but emotionally that these officers can get through this very traumatic incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Chief. Just let me say that as the leader of this city, these are the worst calls that you can get, because your mind immediately goes to the worst possible scenario. And when the chief called me, we didn't know all of the details yet. First 2 officers, then we found out it was 3. And if you remember, that night, it was freezing cold. It was windy. But I want to applaud the men and women of the Rochester Police Department who, during this time when they had one of their colleagues, 3 of their colleagues, shot, were still securing the scene in the cold and rain and wind, when their thoughts were with their colleagues. And all of our partners that were on the scene, I thank all of our partners, including the New York State Police and everyone that showed up. And I said to someone over the weekend, I said, for me, people said, how are you feeling about this? I said, think about how you would feel if you worked at a company or a nonprofit organization and people that you work with were shot. We had 3 individuals shot in cold blood. I know the chief mentioned about the body-worn camera footage, and I know that's going to be forthcoming. I will say that it was very harrowing footage to see, and it really is tough to watch. Tough to watch people being shot at while they're doing their job securing the community. And then I also want to add, and I know I'm going to turn it over to Megan in a second, domestic violence is everybody's business. It has a human cost that you probably have no idea the cost that it has until you see something like this. But officers see this every day. As the chief said, over 6,000 calls. 6,000 calls related to domestic violence, and it's like a pebble. And in this pebble, it was more like a nuclear bomb that went off. This is one of the largest crime scenes I've ever seen. I don't come on crime scenes much, but when I do, it's usually for something like this, when one of our employees or a police officer are injured. I want to be supportive because they serve our city. These are servants. So it's important for me to show up and to be there. And the size of this scene, the temperatures outside, the neighbors that had to endure hearing gunshots, the children that had to witness hearing gunshots. This is the cost of domestic violence. We have 3 officers, and we often say non-life-threatening injuries. But non-life-threatening injuries, ladies and gentlemen, are not life-altering injuries. Anybody shot, even if you survive, you're never the same again. And this is what domestic violence can do. This is People's Exhibit A on what domestic violence can do. And we'll have more conversations in the days and weeks ahead on things that we can do to try to prevent individuals who continuously are involved with domestic violence, not just in this case, but in others. Conversations around order of protection, what the courts do. All those are important conversations for us to have in the weeks and days ahead. But right now, what I ask Rochester to do is to put yourself in the shoes of these families and their colleagues around this is the holiday season, as was said, and I ask that you pray for these officers. I ask that you pray for our city. I ask that you pray for our department. This should not be normalized. And we need to make sure that right now we support our city more so than ever before, because we have people who put their lives on the line to keep our community safe. And then I want to add, as we go throughout the holiday season, Christmas Eve is coming up, New Year's is coming up, I ask that families have conversations about what it means to have safe, healthy relationships. Because one decision can lead to what we saw on Friday night. It's People's Exhibit A. And communities deserve safety. Our officers deserve safety. They know they have to run to danger. But because that's their job, it still doesn't make it right. It still doesn't make it right. They don't come in the roll call every day and plan to be shot at. It's not normal. It's not right. And we have to be clear on that. But again, I ask that you pray for the families. I thank the chief and all of the members of the Rochester Police Department for their leadership during this difficult time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Megan View from Willow Domestic Violence, and then the chief will come back up and take any questions. Megan.
Thank you, Mayor and everyone. I am here today to speak on behalf of our incredible team at Willow of advocates supporting survivors, in support of our partners here who do this incredible work on the front lines, saving lives every day, and to make sure survivors in our community know that you are not alone. There are resources here for you. This kind of incident is 100% preventable. And if we as a community can come together in real ways, including those Christmas Eve conversations the mayor just referenced, let's talk about what relationships look like. Let's talk about how people are doing. Let's try to be there for each other in different ways and have those hard conversations so we don't end up with the kind of hard conversation we're having today. Our hearts are heavy following this weekend's DV-related shooting in our community. We extend our deepest compassion to the survivor, to the responding officers, to their families, and to every person touched by this tragedy. We are standing here once again, confronted with preventable violence and profound trauma. Incidents like this do not affect only one person or one family. This violence creates a ripple effect that moves through our households, our first responders, our neighborhoods, the entire community. For survivors and those with lived experience of domestic violence, events like this, reading about it on the news, seeing those images, can resurface fear, grief, and trauma from their own experience. This moment is painful and it is heavy for many who have worked so hard to feel safe. We know domestic violence is a public safety issue. It does not stay behind closed doors, and when it escalates, it becomes a public safety issue that impacts everyone, including law enforcement and all emergency responders and neighbors and communities. DV is the most dangerous call for officers, and we commend the responding officers for their bravery and courage for rushing in. Their actions, no doubt, saved multiple lives, including the survivor and the children in the home. This could have been significantly worse. What happened this weekend underscores how deeply interconnected survivor safety and community safety truly are. Survivor safety and offender accountability are critically important in preventing tragedies like this. We must take a closer look at our systems and what happens when accountability is delayed or denied. This moment calls for stronger coordination and systems that center survivor safety before the danger escalates. We believe in solutions that can bring partners together, from law enforcement to the courts, to advocates at Willow and community services, to reduce the gaps where people can fall through. For survivors who may be watching or listening, I just want to make sure that you know that you are not alone, that Willow is here. We provide confidential, trauma-informed services, including safety planning, emergency shelter if you need to escape your home if it's not safe, housing advocacy, counseling, and ongoing support. Help is available, and no one has to navigate these situations alone. As we process this trauma, we must also care for one another. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, our 24/7 hotline is available to help you with safety planning and exploring options when you're ready. And when you call our hotline, you're connected to a team of advocates that can walk with you through every step of your journey and help you navigate these systems that are often complex, often difficult to find your way through, and to know what you and your family need in those moments. But we're here for you. You are not alone. Confidential help is available 24 hours a day. This weekend's news may have brought up fear, grief, and memories that you've been carrying quietly. We want you to know that we're here for you. If you're feeling unsafe, unsure, or overwhelmed, even if you're not yet ready to make a change, you just want to talk about what's going on, we are here. When you call, we will walk alongside you. We will not force you or pressure you or convince you to leave or do anything you're not comfortable with. You are the expert in your own life. But we will provide resources and safety planning and support for you as you navigate this. When you decide the time is right, we can help with court advocacy, counseling, housing support, safety planning, help for your pets, and so much more. Support's available on your terms and when you're ready. We are here to listen, to support you. We're here with you, survivors of domestic violence and your families. And we want to, again, commend the incredible partnerships in this community. Monroe County and Rochester is a very special place where we may see significant incidences of domestic violence, 6,000 calls to 911, 6,000 reports for RPD, 40,000 calls to 911, 13,000 calls to Willow Center's hotline. People are reaching out for support in record-breaking numbers. And I think that's largely in part to the incredible community response you see right here behind me. My team is here on the floor too, and we are here to stand together and support survivors in these most critical times. Our hearts, again, go out to the family of the deceased, to the survivor, to her children, to her family, to the officers and their families. Their bravery was incredible. And as I understand it, many of them were fairly new to the force, and just to be able to jump into that scene and know that they are there to save lives and protect survivors, we are so very grateful for their service. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I will do my best to take a few questions.
Do you have an update on the status of the officers that are still in the hospital, how they're doing, if they're expected to recover fully?
So they are both, one is in stable condition, the other is in stable yet still critical condition. They both have surgeries coming up in the coming week.
Are you able to differentiate this officer two in stable?
Let's see. Well, based on what I've given, so no, it's no.
All right, Chief, how many? You talked about the number of shots fired by the others involved. Have you been able to figure out how many shots were fired by police officers during this?
We have an idea. You know, we like to go back over everything a few times and make sure that we're certain before I release that. And I remind everyone that the Attorney General's office will be investigating this as well, as will the Professional Standards section.
Is the order of protection actively in place against Davis when the incident happened?
The order of protection was issued in October, and it was active. Okay.
Chief, what kind of
last one?
I see you're very emotional, and that's obviously understandable. But can you just, what goes through your mind as the chief when you are put into a situation like this with some of your officers?
Well, I mean, obviously, of course, there's the not knowing. I've said many times I know exactly where I was and what I was doing when Deputy Chief Shaw called and told me that Tony Mazurkowicz had been shot. I remember everything from that night. Just, where were you when the World Trade Center? It's the same thing. So, this Friday night, again, I had just finished my nighttime prayers, and I'd asked God to watch over the RPD as I do every night. And I wholly believe He did, because everybody made it through. But yeah, the deputy chief called me, and then we get. It's not like on TV where immediately everybody knows everything. So you're trying to get what information you can without interfering with the folks that are on the scene actively working it. So first we'd heard 2 officers, then we heard 3, and so I mean, again, credit to the boots on the ground. By the time the command staff and I got in, because it takes us a little bit to get here, they really had both scenes locked down. The officers were already in the hospital. I was able to be at the scene very briefly, and then went up to the hospital to the family waiting room. So, but I mean, ultimately, as I watch, I think, is this something I could have done as chief to better prepare them? Is it something we need to do better as a department? Or is this, and again, we will, in the coming weeks and days, obviously, and I've said it many times before, as great as we are, we can always do better. So we're going to find out what we could have done better on this, and we're going to make sure everybody knows it, because I want to try and make this safer for everyone every day that goes on here. But, yeah, I mean, nobody loves their folks more than I do, so it makes it very challenging. Okay, thank you, everybody.
And there you're hearing from the police chief there in Rochester, New York, as 3 police officers were shot during a domestic call in their city. This happened on Friday night, and you heard him kind of tell what happened step by step. This starting with a domestic call at a home there with a caller into 911 saying that his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend was trying to break into their home and possibly had a gun. Those officers responded to that area. The caller pointed out the individual who was outside of the home. He immediately, according to police, opened fire, hitting 2 of the officers, also then hit the caller who was injured, and then ran away from that area. Police say that another officer caught up with that individual. That person then shot him as well in an exchange of gunfire between the two. So a lot of things happened there, but we are learning at this point is that the none of the officers have died, though they have been hospitalized. And another officer on the scene did respond with gunfire on that suspect, shot him multiple times, and he died there. And you can just see the pain there from the police chief when anytime he's dealing with any of his officers that are hurt. You can hear him say all that toll that takes on him. But you also heard from mental health and domestic violence advocates there against domestic violence, talking about how domestic violence is not something that happens in silence. It is a public crisis. When something happens, it can impact everybody in this case, and sharing the resources available for people in that community. Now, right now, we are going to turn our attention to something else that is going on in New York, but a separate portion of New York, this statewide, as we have the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, who is going to be assigning into law some protections for consumers just ahead of the holiday. This bill is designed to increase consumer protections and also to safeguard public health. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to her right now.
And then kratom took his life. The side effects took his life. When you lose a child, you have, or any loved one, you have a choice of what you can do. And I took the former choice for a little while, and that was to take to my bed. But shortly after, Nick's stepson and godfather, who are here today, helped me start researching kratom and realized how unregulated it was. And Nick, in fact, took it thinking it was an herbal health supplement. He was hoping it would help him with his chronic insomnia, give him more energy, and build up his immune system and make him real healthy. But within 6 to 8 weeks, he was hooked, didn't even know why, couldn't even put his finger on it because he was taking something that was an herbal extract and a health supplement. We miss him. We miss him. People say I am very brave, but Nick is the real hero, as are my comrades here in getting this bill together. I have had nothing but empathy, compassion, and support from everyone that I talked to in the legislature. No one misunderstood. Everyone went to action immediately on Nick's behalf. I would also like to say a word about the Saratoga County officials, my hometown, who let me into the town meetings. I was just a mom. Let me speak about Nick and about kratom, and also took action. We picketed. I met other moms, and we made our signs, and we picketed places like little mini marts and gas stations that sold kratom to anyone that walked in. I went into a mini mart shortly after Nick's demise, and there was a mini cooler right by the front door that had a unicorn seltzer with little sparkles coming out of her face. It's flavored strawberry. and read the very tiny, tiny, tiny lettering on the bottom that said contains kratom. And no one even knew what kratom was. So it has been my honor and pleasure to work with these folks here. I feel Nick's presence with us. I feel there will be fewer Nick Scribners who succumb to this drug, and more people engaging in the ripple effect that something like this has. We don't need to lose more young people to this. The word has spread, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
All right, we have our sponsors go up. Senator Fahey.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing a little piece of Nick. Thank you, Governor, for taking the time during what is a really busy holiday season. We're on the cusp of Christmas, often a celebratory time, but as Carrie said, not for all. And I appreciate, Governor, that you took this time during what is often a joyful week to remind all of us of the seriousness and how difficult this is for some families. So as the governor described, kratom is a plant-based supplement, if you will. We talk so much about plant-based foods, plant-based supplements, vitamins. They all just sound pretty good. I try to do more plant-based foods, that is. But that highly addictive nature is something that is only getting very, very fine print. And the fact that it is so highly addictive, yet unregulated, completely unregulated for minors, I could not have been more honored to sponsor this bill along with my colleagues, who you'll hear from momentarily. And the fact that teens and young adults are often mistaken in the use, and that one-fifth of teenagers end up needing some type of medical attention, that's just a stunning number, in a business that has grown to $1.5 billion annually in this country. So your loss, I hope, will help prevent the loss of others, as I hope that the ban on those on selling to anyone under age 21 and plenty of warnings and labeling will help to turn this around. The FDA, at least the FDA of old, the FDA we used to know, did warn us about kratom in 2017, but that's not enough. We need to go to the next step here. This is common sense. Maybe there's more we'll need to do in the future to stop this, but I have to say, this is something we may need to do more of because we are seeing this once again. Science and government are struggling to keep up with these new natural supplements. And so it is incumbent upon us to help families, to help young people navigate this. And on a personal note, I have to say, as a mom too, Carrie, I just so appreciate that you took your extraordinary grief and turned it into action. And I really hope that it will save lives. In fact, I'm sure this will save lives. So yes, I've walked in some of your shoes, and it gives me great comfort that I too can help join you in maybe preventing more loss. But you're a real hero, and I'm quite sure your son, Nick, would be extraordinarily proud of you for taking that grief and helping others and preventing future losses. Thank you so much, and thank you again, Governor, for allowing us to mark this moment and bring more attention to this problem. Thank you. Oh. And with that, how could I forget? I'm supposed to introduce John McDonald, my sponsor. Thank you, John, for bringing this bill to me as I was new to the Senate. It's always an honor to be a legislative partner with you. And John McDonald.
Thank you, Senator. And Governor, thank you for providing your signature to these two important bills. My experience with the age limitation bill dates back about 15 months ago. Tim Murdoch here with Nopiates, and also Sergeant Jessica Denegar with the New York National Guard. We met out in Scotia, and they showed to me the surveillance they had been doing throughout the capital region, particularly in Rensselaer County and Troy, and the abundance of all these products that were in many of the corner stores. And I went out and did a little bit of reconnaissance myself, grabbed a few of these. I was amazed at how easy it was to pick it up and how small the print was, and that's not because I'm getting older. And it led me to work with Pat and to work, obviously, with Carrie to push this legislation, to put age restrictions. These are very common sense, logical first steps towards regulating a substance that has been around for multiple generations. It's not lost on any of us that this is the holiday season. It's a season of joy. Sadly, for families like Carrie's and many others, it is a season of sorrow as well. It is my hope that the legislation that we've collectively worked on together will bring greater days of joy for many families to follow. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a former colleague in the Assembly who thought it was greener over in the Senate, and that's Senator James Skoufis.
I won't comment on whether it's greener, but thank you, Assemblyman McDonald, and thanks to my colleagues from the Capital Region for letting me in the Hudson Valley join this effort of theirs. And thank you to Governor Hochul, who really, and she touched on this, always puts public safety first. At first blush, this looks like and is a consumer protection set of bills. More importantly, in my mind, it is a public health statement that we're making today, and most importantly, is a public safety statement that we're making today. These two bills will keep New Yorkers safer, so thank you, Governor Hochul, for always prioritizing safety in our state. The only other thing I would like to say as a father of a 4.5-year-old, and you know, there's a lot of hyperbole in politics, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, we're all guilty of it sometimes. It's just politics. When we're at events, we want to really stress certain points. It is not hyperbolic when I say that what the Scribner family, Carrie and her family have gone through, what Senator Fahey has gone through, it is unthinkable to me. The loss is unimaginable, to bury your own child. I don't know how anyone that goes through that experience is able to go on in life. I don't know how I would be able to. It is unthinkable, literally. And so Lori, she says that she's not courageous. People say, thank you for your courage. You are courageous, Lori, for what you've done. Because I don't know how most people are able to look forward after what you've gone through. And I want to thank you, Lori, and your family and the advocates for pushing us to do something in light of what happened to you. These are common sense, as my colleagues have stated. These are common sense measures. These are measures that not maybe will save lives. These are measures that will save lives, especially young lives here in New York. So thank you again, Governor Hochul, for signing these measures and making New York safer. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Assemblyman Phil Steck.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. The problem that we're addressing today actually dates back to the 1990s. You may all recall that during the 1990s, we deregulated the financial industry, and it led to the crisis of 2008. At the same time, we also deregulated nutritional supplements. Previously, they had to be approved by the FDA. Now, the FDA had to step in and prevent them from going to market. And as we have seen with Kratom, they issued strong disapproval, but nonetheless, these were common and on the shelves and posing danger to people like Carrie's son. I want to thank Carrie for bringing this issue to my attention as chair of the Committee on Alcoholism and Substance Abuse in the New York State Assembly. I was invited to a meeting by Carrie's Assemblywoman, Mary Beth Walsh, and we discussed the matter, and then went right to work on drafting legislation that would put warning labels on this product. And I thank the governor for adding to some of the things that we had proposed. So this is unfortunately a situation we are in with a lot of substances that are on the shelf, and I'm certainly hoping that this can be a springboard to doing some constructive legislation that hopefully will save lives in this area. Thank you very much.
That concludes our speaking program. We invite the rest of the family, Commissioner McDonald, to join the sponsors as the governor signs this legislation.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so there you have it there from New York with the governor signing a bill in the state into law for public health for individuals there. You got to hear from several people, including families of those impacted, and how this bill would help them. I'll go ahead and show you just a shot right now that we are seeing pop up. If you're familiar with the case of Kilmar Obrego Garcia, right now you have those who are in support of him and what has taken place in that case. Again, he was wrongfully detained earlier this year in March and has gone back and forth with the Trump administration on being detained, whether or not he would be deported elsewhere and back. Recently, a federal judge ruling that he should be released and not re-detained. Obviously, the Trump administration is currently appealing that decision, but he is set to have a detention hearing today in Maryland. This rally you're looking at is in preparation for that, outside of where that hearing is set to take place later on today. All right, I do see that the governor is getting back up and answering a few questions. I'll go back and let me see if I can bring that back up here and see what they are sharing. Again, this is in the state of New York.
Department has any specific thoughts or guidance or research that has been done at the state level about kratom and its impacts, or what are you tracking?
Thank you. So kratom, I still think it's a word that people aren't quite used to. You know, it acts like an opioid is what we often say, but it actually binds to the same receptor as morphine in your body. So it really is addictive. And I think it's just important to understand that the pharmacology of this is well known. And kratom, you know, it isn't just one drug. It's dozens of psychoactive substances. The active ingredients, mitragynine, 7-hydroxymetronidine, the ones that are most well known, but they're the ones that act like an opiate, and people do become addicted to it. I think it's important to know that if you're someone who's addicted to kratom, there's hope. You can get treated with the same medication that we use to help people with opiate addiction. Buprenorphine, for example, is one that's very effective for this. Another thing that people should know is if you experience an overdose with kratom, you know someone who's had an overdose with kratom, you should try naloxone, the opiate antagonist, as well. So I think these are a couple things people should have in mind when you're considering kratom. I think this is just a wonderful example, though, of legislation coming from a grieving mom. That quite frankly, this is avoidable. It's preventable. It's really critical to help New Yorkers this way. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our program, folks. The governor will come back and take a couple off-topic questions if press would like to move to the front. Just give us a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate you sticking with us here at the moment there. Again, that was out of New York, where you can see the governor there signing a new bill into law for protections for those in their public health. We earlier, before that came up live, I do believe we actually, prior to that, we had a live shot out of also in New York, Rochester, with those officers who were shot. We were playing back Governor Youngkin detailing here in Virginia what he believed his accomplishments and things he's been able to achieve. I'll go ahead and cue that up because we did stop it in the middle of it for people to be able to see from there. So if you give me just a quick second in this moment to pull that back up. Again, this is Governor Youngkin speaking before state lawmakers just days ago, detailing the things he believes they've been able to achieve during his time in office.
Worked with the Trump administration to turn back on $2.3 billion of paused grants. And while, yes, there have been federal workers who have lost their jobs, federal job losses have been far less than the catastrophic predictions. 72% of Virginia's federal jobs are in national security, DOW, and intelligence areas that are growing, further buttressed by the NDAA advanced this week. We worked with the Trump administration and brought HUD's headquarters to Virginia and kept the National Science Foundation headquarters. And amidst all those dire prognostications, our AAA bond rating was reaffirmed. All of this is in direct contrast to Maryland and the District of Columbia, both of which have seen significantly higher job losses, and both have been downgraded by the rating agencies. These facts, when combined with massive growth in non-federal government investment, give me great confidence that Virginia should do much better than the roughly 3.5% growth underpinning this budget. If our revenues grow 0.5% faster, at 4% a year, it adds an extra $1 billion over the biennium. And if we grow at 5%, the rate we grew through November, and for the 10 years before our administration, it's an extra $3 billion for the biennium. Whatever the number ends up being, I firmly believe you should have ample resources. Now, I say should because my cautionary message is to stay with the program and don't pass anti-business legislation. Many of the bills that have been filed are bad for business. My friends, Virginia is leading. Don't allow her to become California or Illinois. With this strong yet prudent revenue forecast, Virginia can continue to build on $9 billion of tax relief provided during these 4 years. This has been and will continue to be the most direct way to address cost of living concerns. You should cut taxes, not raise them or create new ones. It is completely unnecessary and bad for Virginians. The tax relief in my introduced budget provides certainty for tax filers by substantially conforming with federal tax law, providing $730 million in tax relief. That includes relief to working families in the form of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and car loan interest deductibility. This budget is supported by revenue growth and carryover balances from large surplus revenue. We also took a hard look at excess balances and unused and unobligated funding. For example, we found around $100 million in balances from programs and turned them back into the general fund. $32 million from commerce and trade programs, $30 million from health and human resource programs, and $25 million from natural resource programs. I encourage all of you to take a hard look at your similar balances and to do the same. Legislative balances have $100 million in unused carryover balances. I hope we all agree that allowing excess balances to just sit is not responsible fiscal management. Our budget makes our largest incremental investment in Medicaid funding, an increase of $2.6 billion over the caboose in the biennium. For the biennium, general fund Medicaid funding grows to $17 billion, and total funding grows to $59 billion. This is a $10.7 billion increase to what we funded together in the Common Ground budget for 25 and 26 just 2 years ago. To address the rising cost of health care and secure the future sustainability of this critical program, we also introduced responsible cost controls that bring an appropriate discipline to our generous Medicaid offering. Controls that root out areas where we know there has been waste, some fraud, and some abuse. And we bring real economies to pharmaceutical spending through a nation-leading agreement on GLP-1s with a price no higher than $245 per month, saving $151 million. The need to bend down the spending curve through saving strategies has never been more important. On SNAP, first let me reiterate how proud I am of the work that our team did in the fall setting up the Virginia Emergency Nutrition Assistance Initiative in record time so that no Virginian in need would go without support. We know there is a shifting of cost to the state and the localities with regards to SNAP. Our administrative costs are a shared federal, state, and local responsibility. At the state level, for federal funds that flow through Virginia, I propose to take on and absorb all the responsibility for the increase in both the state and local portion and put $100.3 million behind it in my introduced budget. For those funds that flow directly to the localities with no state involvement, the localities should be responsible for their share of the increase. And we are getting our SNAP error rate down. Virginia's SNAP error rate was a little over 11%, which puts us at the national average. And while we were at the average, I don't believe Virginia is average in anything. Based on tremendous progress made in our transformation efforts to improve the local administration of SNAP benefits, there is a real path to getting our error rate below 6%. To buttress those efforts, we've included an additional $3.6 million for SNAP support to further those efforts for rate reductions to be among the best in the nation, not middle of the pack. We have 12 more months to get this right. 15 of 50 states already have an error rate below 6%. There is no reason why Virginia can't get there as well. On education rebenchmarking, this budget provides an additional $544 million in general fund for the next biennium, bringing our total investment to a record $22.8 billion. This includes maintaining our increased funding for support positions, a key compromise in last year's Chapter 725 budget. And when accounting for early childhood education, investments now total $23.8 billion all in. We've worked together to increase direct aid to public education by nearly 50% since the pandemic. and we've shown that investing in students produces results. Virginia leads the nation in recovering from math learning loss. All in Virginia, intensive tutoring works. And Senators Lucas and Locke, thank you for your partnership in that initiative. We have shown that delivering transparency, introducing accountability, raising expectations results in better student outcomes. We made the tests harder, and the students did better. Students are also doing better because they're in school in the first place. Virginia now leads the nation in reducing chronic absenteeism. And we also continue to support teachers with raises. That includes the 2% bonus this year because I think they have done an amazing job and they deserve it. And 2% pay raises in each year in the biennium. I'm proud to say that teacher vacancies continue to decline and are now down over 35%. With 19% pay increases and state support for teacher compensation, cell phone free education across the Commonwealth, nationally leading academic standards, and a teacher licensing process that now works, it is no surprise that vacancies are down, and Virginia was just recently ranked the best state to be a teacher. To fund our shared goals when it comes to early education.
Okay, you were just listening there to Governor Glenn Youngkin speak before state lawmakers there on what he believes his accomplishments were during the course of his tenure as governor, which is set to come to an end next month as we do have Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger coming into the role. But with that, right now, it is time for us to end this particular stream. Up next, you'll have 13 News Now at noon with Marta Berglund, and we'll be back here at 1 o'clock here on 13 News Now Plus.